RJ, for the first time in 46 years, the United States gold medal champions at the Olympic Games in men's hockey. What were your reactions to watching this game?
Dylan, well, first of all, there was waking up at 5 a.m. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, but how stupid it was that this game was 5 a.m. Pacific time, 8 a.m. Eastern time start. I hope as many people as possible watched this game because it was an awesome hockey game. The pace was incredible, back and forth both ways, and I
Mhm.
mean a lot of one way really in the final two periods. I, what a game. Just what a game to watch. I'm so glad I got up to watch it. I mean, there's so many elements to break down, whether it's the Jack Hughes overtime goal coming in clutch, beating Jordan Biddington, who I wasn't convinced was going to be allowed to allow a goal. Like he's just so clutch in overtime. And then there's the big 5-on-3 PK. It was a huge turning point. There's Connor Hellebuyck, easily the MVP of this game for Team USA. So many areas to break down. I guess just simply what a hockey game.
It was a fantastic hockey game. It's what we've come to expect when these countries face off in these big moments, right? It lived up to the billing there. I'm sure NBC was happy about that part. Probably not happy about the time scheduling for the game. I'm with you. 5 a.m. out here on the Pacific Coast for us probably is going to impact the number. Maybe not so much in Canada, but I have to imagine it will in the United States. I think that decision and the decision to kind of have to have it be 3-on-3 overtime, all just so you can have this over before you do the closing ceremonies, it's less than ideal to say the least, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But yes, Team USA had a really solid performance. Canada, in my opinion, not so much. We'll get into that too because I have some thoughts on kind of how they played this game. But I think for me, the big thing is Connor Hellebuyck. I think that is your MVP of this game. The reason that US wins gold and breaks their gold drought is Connor Hellebuyck.
Yeah, he absolutely stole this game for Team USA. He was their MVP, stopped a bunch of shots that he had no business stopping, especially, I mean, that one
The
net
paddle
front
save
on
behind his
Devontae
back.
save of the, and I think the broadcasters were struggling to like not just save of the game, not just save of the tournament. I think Eddie Edzo said like something like it transcends the tournament. It's just save of the pick whatever you want. Incredible save. And I think he just got into the Canadians' heads, just that they kind of knew there wasn't really much they could do to beat him. Like they just, no matter what they did, he was going to stop the puck. Or, in the case of Nathan McKinnon with that wide open net, it just wasn't going to go in.
Yeah, I mean it is an interesting one because like I think Canada got into their own heads a little bit in this
Okay.
one, and
I'm curious what you thought about that because look, Canada obviously had a ton more shot, quality
yep.
chances, all this stuff. Did they get goalied or was it and just unlucky or was it something they were doing or not doing?
I think it's both. I think there was times that Canada was figuring it out and they were pressuring without pressing. And I think like that's when they're at their best. That's when all hockey teams are at their best. That's what you want to be doing is controlling the game, but you're not trying to force things. Because when you try to force things is when things can, go bad for you. And I think that that's what happened at various times in this game was Canada would go from pressuring to pressing. And that's when most of the bad things happened for them. But I think like at the same time, when they were just pressuring and they weren't pressing, Hellebuck was there to stop them. And so I think it was a combination of the two. I think at times Canada was beating themselves and they were in their own heads and they were trying to do things a little bit too hard. I think about the 5-on-3 power play that felt very much like they were pressing. That was a perfect opportunity to slow the game down, right? Like slow the game down, choose your moment. You could pick apart that defense if you want to with those five players on the ice against their three. That was your time to kind of beat Hellebuck. And instead, they felt very frenetic, very frantic. They were really trying to force shots that were not the grade A chances that you'd normally look for in a 5-on-3. I think those kinds of moments kind of got into their own heads a little bit, and they were playing just a little bit too quick, which is insane to say on a team where Connor McDavid, Macklin Celebrini, Nathan McKinnon, all of those guys. But I think that genuinely happened to Canada, and I have some other moments that I think really play that out. But in the moments where Canada was composed, when they were just dominating, when they were in control of the game, Connor Hellebuck was able to step up, match that energy, bail out his team, keep his team in it, whatever you want to call it, and really just be the player of the game. And also shout out Charlie McAvoy for also making arguably the biggest save of the game as well. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with that. And Connor Hellebuck in those moments when Canada was dominating, because there was large portions of this game where Canada was controlling everything and they were dominating. Connor Hellebuck kept his team in it and put them in a chance where they could go out there, counterattack, get a big goal in overtime, and win the game.
Yeah, I think you do kind of need both. You needed Canada to maybe be panicking a little bit there, but also you need a stellar goalie performance from Connor Hellebuck. He delivers, and I mean, with Hellebuck too, it's been a question. Can he deliver in the
Mhm.
big game? Can he get it done? I think the answer after this is absolutely yes. I mean, you talk about, and maybe we can talk about it later, just players' legacies impacted by this game. But I think Connor Hellebuck has to be at the top of the list given what he's done, or I guess hasn't done in the Stanley Cup playoffs, comes through, gets it done in this game. And I think it's something we've kind of talked about for years about how he can be this good if it's his, what I think, 41st start of the season, maybe not his 61st or 71st. I think the rest is key.
It is like this should prove it more than anything that it is not that he struggles in the big moments. He can be clutch. He can get it done when, all the chips are in the middle of the table. Everything is riding on his performance. He came up huge and he was able to make it happen. He was able to get the US to this spot too, right? Kind of taking over the crease from Jeremy Swayman after Jeremy Swayman struggled at the beginning of the tournament. It wasn't just this game from Connor Hellebuck, although obviously this was the biggest performance from him and the biggest game. But it's really been all tournament for him, and I'm totally with you. I mean, yeah, as you said, we've been saying it for years. Connor Hellebuck just gets burned out because the Winnipeg Jets ride him way too hard in the regular season, and then he gets to the playoffs and he just doesn't have anything left in the tank. This shows that he is a big time goaltender. He just needs to have some energy to him, right? And after you play 70 regular season games, 65 regular season games, whatever it always ends up being, it's really hard to then elevate yourself and find that next level. And that I think has really been his struggle so far. But I'm with you. Legacy wise for him, this is really important because I think this does help. Having that gold medal does help bring him from really good regular season goalie, somebody who maybe got away with stealing a bunch of Vesnos, blah blah blah, which is what the conversation could have easily turned into for him over the next couple years, into, well, the Jets just never got it done, right? Like he removed himself from the conversation, but it was Connor Hellebuck was a great goalie through the early 2020s, right? He was the best goalie in the National Hockey League, and he won gold with Team USA. They were able to break their drought because of his incredible performance in the gold medal game, and that becomes the conversation that we'll have about Connor Hellebuck 10, 20, 50 years from now.
Yeah, I think if anything, I mean, weirdly, in a way, as far as the biggest impact on legacies, maybe the Jets coaching and front office
Yes.
is on that list. I think it looks pretty bad for them just that he's able to get it done in this game. Now, I guess going back to the game, you talked about the different moments for Team Canada where, and you could kind of pile it on where they didn't get it done or they were pressing a little too much. Like, what do you think was the biggest turning point moment in this game? Because there are really a few you could choose from.
I think there was a few. I think getting the 4-minute power play for Team USA at the end of the third was huge.
Mhm.
Obviously, you're not able to score on that on either of those power plays, but you were able to slow the game down and get back in the game. If you're Team USA, I think like if you don't have the special team stuff at the end of that one and the game just kind of naturally rolls into overtime, I don't know how much juice Team USA has, right? Because at that point it just feels like you're surviving a barrage and you're just really stuck in your trenches and you're just trying to do anything you can to get out of that. But I think being able to have that moment, game slows down for you, you're able to go on that power play, you have plenty of time. Obviously it doesn't end well for you, you'd love to score on that, and you also definitely don't want to take a penalty and then force Canada onto the power play. But I think it was that kind of momentum shifting moment where it just kind of got them back in the game, got them engaged again in the offensive zone, got them to be like, okay, this is the stuff that we can do. We can move the puck there actually. Because I feel like through a lot of this game, Team USA probably lost some of that, right? It felt like that confidence was shaky for them. They were not attempting those cross crease passes. They were not going for those longer passes in the offensive zone and trying to really pressure the Canadian defense and really try to get Jordan Binnington moving, which is what he's looked shaky on all night, because you could tell they were just like, look, we got in the offensive zone finally. What do we even do? Right. And they were trying to play it safe. They were trying to get some offensive zone time. So I think having the double minor from the high stick was huge for them, just being able to regain their confidence and feel like they can accomplish something in the offensive zone.
Yeah, and I think they needed that time too, because it took them about a minute to get set up into that power play. And I was thinking, man, this isn't gonna Canada's gonna kill this off. This probably isn't gonna work for them, but it'll probably help them get to overtime. I didn't see the Jack Hughes penalty coming, but I figured, okay, it'll get them far enough through the third period because it really felt like their only chance was to get to
Yeah.
3-on-3. And at 3-on-3, anything can happen. And so they kind of were having to play for that. That was a big moment in the game. I mean, I still think if Canada scores on that 5-on-3, that just juices their confidence
Mhm.
enough that I know they ended up tying the game anyway, but it just has a different feel, I think, on the Canadian bench. Like, look, we took care of this. We're supposed to. That seed of doubt, especially as far as beating Hellebuyck, doesn't have the time to grow in the way that it did.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think if they're able to, like I said, like that was the moment that just felt like, okay, this really is not the Team Canada that we're used to seeing. It was how they handled that 5-on-3. And I couldn't help but think, if Sidney Crosby's out there, does this go differently in that moment, right? Just the quiet confidence. We talked about this when we kind of talked about everything post group stage, and it was pre Crosby injury, but just the leadership aspect that he brings that, Connor McDavid doesn't quite have yet. Nathan McKinnon doesn't have it to him. Macklin Celebrini, definitely too young to know, right? And isn't in the leadership position yet, but it just felt like one of those moments where if Sidney Crosby's out there for part of that 5-on-3, you know what he's doing? He's holding on to that puck. He's letting plays develop. He's letting guys get open. He's letting them get the looks that they want, because he's been there, done that so many times in his career. That's just who he is, right? The game slows down for Sid. It's not that, what I mean, like the game slows down and they can see things better, as we normally talk about for players as they transition up through levels. Like everybody slows down around Sidney Crosby. He's able to drag them all down. And I think that Canada missed that. I think they missed some of that leadership in those moments where it was just like, look, let's just calm down, take a breath. Let's go out there and execute on our game. And I feel like particularly for that 5-on-3, they just didn't have it. But there was other moments where it just felt like they were just making little mistakes. And there was a huge one for me that I think really highlights kind of where the Canadian mindset was, particularly in the first half of this game, the first 30 minutes of it. And that was in the second period when you had the broken stick in the offensive zone. Canada's in the offensive zone. Team USA has the broken stick. I forget which player it was who had the broken stick for Team USA, but there's a broken stick out there, and it's lying in the middle of the ice. It's in a really inconvenient spot for Canada because you can't really pass around it. You're having to really maneuver around. Shea Theodore has the puck up at the point. He moves it, and then Canada's able to work it down low on the left side a little bit, and Shea Theodore's up there at the right point, and he doesn't move the stick. And I'm like, you've got time to move the stick. And the whole time I'm like talking to the TV because I'm a Shea Theodore guy, right? Like I'm not just
I know
throwing
you
this
are.
out there to throw
Big fan
shade
of his,
at
yeah.
Shea Theodore. The entire time I'm like, okay, Shea Theodore, just move this puck and then get that stick out of the way so you guys can actually go to work. And instead, he moves the puck and he doesn't move the stick. And then, of course, 2 plays later, it comes back to haunt him as the pass going back to Theodore hits that stick, goes by him. They clear the zone, right? And it's a problem. But for me, that was a moment that made it kind of crystal clear. Like Canada's not on their A game, because that's the kind of thing that, like in a gold medal game, you have to take control of. You have to be aware of those situations. You have to know, look, I have 3, 4 seconds, I can swipe the stick over to the boards. And you have to do it, and you have to make sure you make that play. And it just felt like in those moments when those things would crop up all night long, Canada wasn't making the plays that they needed to.
Okay, now this might sound like a weird question because it's just totally vibes based. Of course, they miss Sidney Crosby on the ice. Like, I
Yeah.
think if he's there and playing in that game, they probably win and it goes differently. If you're Team Canada, Is it worth pulling, I guess, like Sweden with Victor Hedman, where you just, I know you want the extra forward. That makes tons of sense on paper.
Yeah.
Like this, I can't believe I'm even asking this question. But do you think it would have gone better if they had just dressed Sidney Crosby, not played him a single shift, but he's on the bench with the guys and able to maybe settle him down? Again, it sounds absurd,
It
but in this one instance,
it does. I mean, he was in the locker room. We know that, right? Or at least
right?
we presume he was. He was in the locker room for the Finland game. So
Yeah,
I have to assume he was in the locker room talking to everybody through all of these intermissions as well. We saw it. He was suited up to do the handshake line afterwards. We did see that today, which class act from Sid as always.
oh,
go,
absolutely.
go out there to get the silver and do the handshake line. I so he was around, but yes, like does having him on the bench to kind of calm guys down make a difference? I don't know. I mean, who do you take out for him? Because I
That's what I'm looking. I'm trying to see
there's
who had
one
the fewest ice
person
time.
there's one
Yeah.
person I think I would take out for him who I thought really kind of struggled, not just in this game but kind of in the tournament at the forward position, and this would allow Sam Reinhart to have more ice time, but that's Seth Jarvis.
Yeah, I barely noticed him.
Seth Jarvis, game looked too fast for him. Like this game was exceptionally fast. Another reason why it was an incredible game. But if there was one player coming out of this game that I'm kind of like, oh, okay, maybe he's not quite as good as I thought he was, it's Seth Jarvis. So I do wonder about sitting Seth Jarvis, put Reinhardt in for more ice time, and then yeah, you could have Crosby on the bench. I don't know. End of the day, I don't think it matters that much. I think if he's just not out there, it just that's what matters. But it is an interesting question.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at it, they did use all their forwards at least for some amount of time. Jarvis played about 8 minutes. Reinhardt played about 7. Yeah, I would like to see more ice time for Reinhardt, but that's the key, not necessarily. If you had a guy that you played for, because didn't yeah, Clayton Keller played 38 seconds for Team
Yeah,
USA. If you had a guy you played for 38 seconds, I'd be like, you know what, at that point, just put Crosby on the bench. But Canada didn't do that. They played everybody.
yeah, yeah. Credit to Mike Sullivan for the changes also going into the third period, shaking things up. This was something that again last time we talked on here, right? We were very kind of critical, or at least I was very critical about the deployment for Team USA. But going into that third period, Mike Sullivan, he made some tweaks to the lineup, and I think that they did help, right? Obviously the first half of that period still is very dominant by Canada, but I do think that the additional chemistry, breaking up the Kachuk brothers, all of that stuff did help contribute to them being able to withstand that storm and get to the point where you just need a bounce or a situation to go your way in a 3-on-3 overtime and you win gold.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly wasn't afraid to change things that weren't working. I mean, that line blender by the third period, because I mean, there was a good 25 minutes where they just looked bad. I mean, he cranked
Yeah.
it up to puree. That like he was not afraid to move things all around. And credit to Mike Sullivan, he eventually found something that at least worked well enough. I don't think they ever looked great at
Yes.
5-on-5, but it was able to kind of stop the bleeding there.
Yeah. So I just while we were on the topic of ice time and usage and all of that stuff, I just wanted to throw that out there because I did think that it was like, okay, finally you did it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it did take a little while, but they did do it. I mean, when you look just at this game as a whole, like because the whole time I was thinking, man, if USA somehow pulls this off, it'll be a lucky win. Like how much was it, luck versus them just executing the game plan that they wanted to? Because I talked about this last week with like Team USA and the big gamble they were making by building their
Mhm.
roster this way, and it paid off. I think exactly how they were hoping it would. But as I said last week, man, it's risky. And oh boy, did they come very close? Whether it was, I mean, we didn't talk about like the rest of the elimination games, but getting to overtime against Sweden or Slovakia was a little bit easier. But I mean, they gambled for sure and they won.
Yeah, I had a feeling this morning that Team USA could do it. I told my dog. There's nobody else around. I told the dog was there, and I was like, you know what, Afra? I think Team USA is gonna do it today. Um, there was just kind of like that feel to it where it was like, you know what, today feels like an underdog day, because all through the elimination rounds of this Olympic tournament, we didn't really get the underdog win, and there's always
Not a
got to
single
be
one.
yeah, and there's always got to be one. And so I was like, you know what? I think today is the day of the underdog. And they did do it. That being said, they were so lucky, right? Nathan McKinnon misses a wide open net. That You know what I mean? Like he misses
You
that
can't
one
count
out
on
of a
that.
hundred times, right?
Yeah.
You get the paddle save from Connor Hellebuyck that we already talked about. You get the save from Charlie McAvoy we already talked about, right? Like so many more bounces went in favor of Team USA than went in favor of Canada that you have to include the luck factor in this one. I don't think that you can really make the case that Team USA outplayed Canada in this one. I think there's some element to be made that Canada kind of lost it. And I've already kind of laid that out there a little bit, but a lot of it comes down to luck. And look, this is one of the things with a one game elimination in a sport like hockey is luck can be a major determining factor in, crowning your champion. And I think that it was always going to be that way. It was going to favor one of these two squads, and that team is then more than likely going to win. And it favored the US today, and they were able to win. And I'm not saying that to take anything away from the USA squad, because they also played very mistake free for the most part, right? As mistake free as they possibly could and they needed to be to be put in the position to actually get it done. And they were the team that got it done, and they did get the goaltending performance from Connor Hellebuck, and they did get the coaching changes that I kind of wanted to see, and they did all of those things. So I'm not trying to say like, oh, it was just luck, and there should be an asterisk next to this gold medal or something. But I do think that in hockey, when you're talking about a one game elimination scenario or a one game championship, and then you're also going to throw in 3-on-3 overtime, it would be irresponsible not to, kind of acknowledge that luck plays a factor in everything kind of getting to that moment.
Yeah, and especially when a game is as close as it is. I mean, again, like last week, I said this was the gamble they were making, that they could maybe drag Canada into a 2-1. I think I even said a 2-1 game and just be the ones to get that extra bounce. And that's exactly what happened. And they basically structured their entire team to drag any opponent towards that ultimate like two to
Yeah.
one type of game. Now, the problem is when you drag maybe Sweden into that game, where I think if you go more skill based, you probably beat them by a little bit more. You're lucky you face Slovakia in the semifinals. And you don't have to worry about that because you're just that much better of a team. But that's the gamble they made. And hey, they bet on being in a 2-1 game against Canada. And you know what? They were in a 2-1 game against Canada, especially one where I got to admit, look, I was critical of the roster selection, particularly like JT Miller, Vincent Trocek. When that was selected, I think a lot of people were critical of it. I have to admit I was wrong. Like you look
Yeah.
at the 5-on-3 and that penalty kill, this team going perfect on the PK through the entire tournament. That was huge in this game. We just talked about the turning
Mhm.
point that was the late Canada power play late in the third. They
Yeah.
had just scored late on the power play against Finland to get to the gold medal game. You kind of needed to be perfect on the PK in this one, and they were throughout the whole tournament. They were a big part of it.
No, they were, especially Vincent Trocek going in there for some of those big face-offs against Bo Horvat. Love that, by the way, especially in
Mhm.
overtime. The two of them going out there 3-on-3 overtime just for the face-offs, and then both immediately skating off to get other guys on the ice. Love that. This is the kind of game within the game era that hockey has finally hit, right? Like that coaches are literally doing that in 3-on-3 of the gold medal game at the Olympics. Just really going for it. But yeah, it's one of those things where those guys really did step up and they did make a big difference down there. I think that, again, there's still some usage stuff, whatever ice time wise. I think, you still probably leaned a little too heavy on the Kachucks, who I didn't think particularly either of them played a great game today. But those guys at the bottom of the lineup having a fourth line that looks like it plays like a traditional fourth line does, it did matter. And they were able to, I feel like, at times win that matchup. And certainly it matters to have those guys on the roster for those big special teams moments, as it did throughout the whole tournament. Like you said, I mean, it kind of felt like it was getting glossed over amongst everything else, but going perfect on the penalty kill throughout an entire tournament like this, when you are playing teams like Team Canada, Team Sweden, you know what I mean? Like you played against Germany, right? Like who has some legit power play guys out there, and Tim Stützle and of course Leon Draisaitl. It's a very legitimate thing, and I think like if you were to ask a lot of the guys in that room, and you were to ask that coaching staff of, what are some of the things that you're going to really take away from this tournament, remember from this tournament, feel like this is the work we put in to get ourselves here and to break this gold drought for America. I feel like you have to point to that 100% PK number, because that's just something that's really special and you just don't see often at all.
No, you really don't, and especially you go short 5-on-3 against Team Canada in the biggest moment.
Hmm.
Also, credit to Mike Sullivan. I love him putting 2 forwards and 1 defenseman out there.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yep. Yep.
That was awesome. Like, who does that?
For me, like, okay, legacy time for coach. Mike Sullivan redeemed himself so much in my eyes with the way that he handled today, and the changes that he made in some of those situations, and what he was going for. Because you know, and I for years, right? Like, I've always included him as, you know, top three ish coach in the National Hockey League. But I think, you know, last couple of years in Pittsburgh are what they were, and then certainly the way things have gone this year with the Rangers, and then some of the usage early on with Team USA in this tournament, and his player usage, I was like, okay, maybe Mike Sullivan's just kind of lost it, right? Maybe the game's passed him by. Maybe he's just too
I
stuck in
thought
his
so
way. He
too.
needs to adapt and evolve, right? And kind of take that next step. All great coaches have to do that at some point. It felt like he did for this game. Like, he was just like really on the money in this one. And I thought John Cooper also, incredible tournament from him and the way he handled everything, including today. But Mike Sullivan really made the right changes when he needed to today. And it's gone a long way for me being like, yeah, you know what? Mike Sullivan is still like a top three, top five coach in the National Hockey League and really the world.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I kind of thought he had lost it too, but man, this was a masterclass. Mike Sullivan coaching masterclass in this game, and especially against John Cooper with that roster to work with for Canada. Again, it didn't look pretty at times. Like, I mean, for long stretches, Team USA looked pretty bad, but there's a lot to be said for not giving up that go-ahead goal.
Yeah, and not letting the team get too defeated either, right? Like, obviously there's a big portion of that that is the player leadership, but it also comes from the coaches and the rest of that staff that, you know, you're looking for this, right? Like you mentioned earlier, this is what they wanted. Didn't quite have the, you know, miracle speech before this one. I don't know if you caught that on the broadcast when they were in the
I
room
think I
for
only
that
caught the
speech.
very tail. What did just something about like American swagger? That was it.
There's like a little bit like that, but it was mostly just like, you know, he would just like throw out scenarios and just be like, do your job, whatever, like or get it done or something like that. But it was like, it was even more generic than like do your job. Like do your job is too good, but it was just like take care of business or something like that. And it was
Okay.
like, all right, that it's not quite, you know,
Yeah, the only
the
way I
Herb
can picture
Brooks
that
moment.
being good, yeah, I guess is if you're just like can predict it. Devon Taves tap in net front, paddle save, do your job.
Yeah,
5-on-3 penalty kill, do your job. Like, I don't
yeah,
know, but I only caught the very tail end of it because I just turned it on. I'm not a morning person,
yes.
so it was like 5:07 by the time I turned on the TV. I think I got the last just few words of it.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's a strong 5 hours before you'd normally get up. So
It is.
it's,
It is.
but
I mean,
yes,
right now we're recording this like a good hour before I normally get
yeah,
up.
that's
So
true. That's true. But yeah, it was just one of those where I was like, and you know, to credit to them, a very different scenario, right? Like this is not the underdog team, and I don't think Team USA saw themselves as the underdog, right? Like that wasn't the vibe that this team has had the entire tournament, was that they were going to get to the gold medal game and then be the underdog and have to pull out some sort of miracle. No, they thought they were the best and they wanted to go out there and prove it, and I think that they did in that one regard here today. Certainly Connor Hellebuyck proved it anyway. What else did you get from this one? One of the other big things for me, and this is again goes to Connor Hellebuyck and his performance in this one, and then also maybe some of the mental mistakes on Canada's side, but it was how the goalies both handled the breakaway opportunities. And really the Matt Boldy goal at the beginning of this one, incredible play from Matt Boldy. I want to get that out of the way here before I talk about how Jordan Binnington handled it, because I don't want to take away anything from Matt Boldy. He made an incredible skill play to get it in the zone, to split the defenders, to get his stick on it at the end and score the goal. Matt Boldy absolutely deserves all the praise that Eddie Olczyk was heaping on him during this broadcast and continue to do so really throughout. But I look at that scenario and how Jordan Binnington plays that, and the more that they showed that replay, RJ, the more I was just like, what is Jordan Binnington doing? Because in that scenario, Matt Boldy is struggling just to deal with the two defenders who are all over him. He's reaching out for a puck. He's playing it well in front of him. He's kind of one-handed. The puck's bouncing all over the place. It's not like it's really settled on him. he's not going to be able to lift that puck. All you have to do if you're Jordan Binnington is make sure you have the bottom of the ice sealed, right? Anything on the ice has to be taken away. And Jordan Binnington doesn't do that. And instead he gets a little squirrely at the end and he opens up things near side and then the goal is able to go in versus the breakaway opportunity from Connor McDavid against Connor Hellebuyck, where again, Connor Hellebuyck reads it similar type of well, I mean, different situation, but similar in the sense that Connor McDavid is not in a position to elevate the puck at all. The puck is going to be on the ice. How does Connor Hellebuyck play it? He completely takes away everything on the ice. If you watch how Connor Hellebuyck plays that, he's got both legs pressed up against the post, and then his blocker and his stick are down covering 5-hole. It is textbook perfect how you take away the entire bottom of the ice. Everything blocker side, which is the side that McDavid's moving to, is completely wide open above his pad. If the puck was to be elevated at all, it's going in. But Hellebuyck recognizes Connor McDavid is not going to be able to elevate this puck. I just have to make sure it doesn't trickle in along the ground, along the ice. And he takes it away and he makes sure that he seals the bottom. That's all Jordan Binnington had to do on the Matt Boldy goal, in my opinion, RJ. And that goal never happens.
Yeah, well, I think on the Boldy goal, Binnington he's making a gamble. He is guessing that Boldy
Yes.
is going to do what I thought he was going to do, which was try and go further to the backhand, open up the 5-hole and do the little can opener move. And Binnington played that perfectly because his whole thing is, I'm going to get skinny. I'm going to make sure that my stick is covering the 5-hole and that I cannot be beaten that one spot. He got a little too skinny and it goes just right to the side of him. And yeah, I think that's what another difference too with Hellebuyck being a larger goalie,
Yeah.
that you can spread those pads out and take away a lot more of the bottom of the net than what Binnington can. And I mean, I'm looking at the picture here to like see Hellebuyck, and he's spread further out. There is room 5-hole. Like if
Okay.
McDavid did the move I thought Boldy was going to do, probably goes in because Hellebuck's stick is out to the side of him a little bit. But I think Binnington just kind of gambled and lost there. But it's one of those plays where a goalie that kind of stays further back in his net, you got to get those legs out a little bit wider, and it helps if you're bigger. But I just love the play from Boldy. I'm sorry, like I don't even
Yeah,
want to
no,
blame
it is.
Binnington too much on it because the play from Boldy, one, to get there,
Mm-hmm.
but two, to not go with the move that I think in a split second anybody would have thought he would do. And certainly if I'm Binnington, that's the same gamble I'm making. That's the move I think he's going to make.
It's certainly the move that Boldy tends to make. Like, how many times have we seen Matt Boldy make that move? You know what I mean? And I'm sure
Yeah.
Binnington's running through that in his mind too, because they're in the division together, right? And he's probably seen that a million times. And so he's like, okay, maybe this is what he's going to go with. And yeah, as you said, gambled and lost.
Yeah. So that was huge. I mean, first of all, I love Matt Boldy. I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
Matt Boldy, and so to see him come up huge in that moment. Also, I've been saying I love the way he scored it too, because I've been saying forever, forwards need to get the puck up in the air more.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like doing those, just lobs to a forward underneath going for it. For whatever reason, defensemen at the NHL level just have a lot of trouble with those when the
Yeah.
puck is up in the air. Just it's short circuits their wiring. I don't know what it is.
Because who coaches for it?
That's true. Like you never coach for it. The puck's always flat. You're like, no one practices that really. It's just, if it's up in the air, it's on a dump in or something where you're playing it. But in that awkward spot on the blue line, like you could see it just short circuits both the defensemen there. I think it was Taves and Makar.
Yeah.
Neither of them knows what to do with it.
Mhm.
And they have the manpower. They should be able to handle it. And they just, I don't know, they can't figure it out. And
Yeah.
so players ought to try that more. I hope they do.
I have a feeling we'll probably start seeing it more and more, just with the NHL getting faster, more skill based, more guys capable of pulling off plays like that. I feel like we should, in a perfect world, see that more. In theory, we should see it
Well,
more.
now that it's been done on such a big stage for such a big goal too, I wonder if you get some emulators there.
Oh, I mean, how many 10-year-olds are going outside right now and trying that on the pond, right?
Trying to do the Matt Boldy. I know
Yeah.
I would if I was
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
That's
So
the kind of stuff we did all the time.
might take 10, 15 years to get
Yeah.
there to the NHL, but it'll get there. It'll get there. But I am with you. Like, it is something that again, defense is not coached for how to handle that situation, because if you're Canada, who else would you want to be defending in that spot? You want those guys out there on the ice, right? You take them every single time. And
It's your
and
top D pair.
and it's guys that play together. It's not even like, okay, they're two great defensemen, but they're, a conference apart and they were thrown together for this tournament. And, maybe then there's some lack of communication or not knowing each other's habits, whatever. No, these guys absolutely know what the other one is going to be doing. It's your top D pair. And still I kind of left that dumbfounded. Neither one of them really, fully took away Boldy's body. That was, I think, the thing that kind of surprised me, was that neither one of them really just sold out to bring him down, because he had the puck.
Yeah, he had the puck, and again, he's in front of him. Like, I
Yeah.
know he makes a good skating move and then kind of gets level with Taves pretty quick. It gets past Makar. Makar turns really
Yeah.
slowly there. But this is what I talk about when I say like it kind of short circuits the wiring. Because look, NHL defensemen know to take the body there.
Mhm.
If that puck stays just level on the ice and he tries to put it through their legs or deke around or whatever, an NHL defenseman, their instincts are going to kick in and be like, okay, hands to chest, take away the body. For whatever reason, when that puck's in the air, their eyes just they just get locked on it,
Yeah.
and then all they can think about is the puck. And what have we been coached? What have we coached? Squirt players, right? Like, what have we coached them since they were little kids? And all these
Mhm.
guys have been coached. Take the body, not the puck. But once that puck's in the air, they can't help themselves.
Yeah. No, it is true. It's very true. Very, very true. Um, oh man, it feels like there's so many things.
I know,
The
like I don't know where to go
Yeah,
next.
yeah. I'm trying to think of where to go next with everything. Obviously the two big penalties late. Did not think we would see that, because it felt like the refs were really kind of swallowing their whistles. You get the no call on the too many men for Team USA.
Obvious one, yeah.
Unbelievably obvious, but I don't know. Was it just not in the rule book for this tournament? After two rounds prior, right? We had multiple too many men missed calls as well. Like, is that just not something that the officials were going to care about this tournament? Because if so, the coaches never got that memo.
No, and I mean, I'd love to see how much the coaches would push it if they knew it wasn't going to get called. But that's been one of my big complaints for the tournament as a whole, is the officiating, and it's not the kind of thing you'd expect. Look, I think the officiating overall, they've kind of swallowed their whistles. They've been hesitant to call things, and generally, I'm okay with that in a
Yeah,
tournament like this. I know the
same.
switch to using more NHL refs and everything. I'm fine with that. Like, if you let some hooking, grabbing, whatever go, that's okay as long as you're generally consistent with it. And I think they have been. What is inexplicable to me is the amount of missed calls on things that are obvious and automatic.
Hmm.
Things like the Czechs having six skaters out there for a goal for a long period of time. Things like the too many men in this game. Things like some obvious high sticks
Hmm.
earlier in the tournament that was missed. Like, again, automatic calls. This is not a judgment call, but things that were just missed, especially when the officials were or certainly should have been looking right at it. That I don't understand.
Yeah, I was shocked when that happened, because I was shocked, because I was like, oh my gosh, if you're Team USA, how do you mess up like this, right? As it's happening, I'm just like, oh wow, like this is it. Like, they've played relatively mistake free through all of this. They've put themselves in this spot to be competitive, and then this is how it's going to go out, right? Just kind of a
That's going to cost them the
slow
game. That
line
was my
change,
thought.
and the puck goes over there, and I was like, that's it. And then just nothing happened. And it felt like even like Jack Hughes, who is the player coming off in that scenario, is even just like, oh no. Right? Like, he looks like the kid who got caught with his hand in the cookie jar, and then just nothing happens, and he's like, oh, okay. And he just kind of slides off, right? Stage there. He's just like, all right, here we go. And then just nothing happened. And I was completely shocked. And you could tell the Canadian bench was also like they weren't even as upset as you'd normally see like an NHL bench, because I think they were all just kind of stunned that it just was missed.
Well, here's what I think happened in that instance. If you go back and watch it, because the puck initially comes by the bench and hits somebody, and
Right.
at that point everyone's like, "Oh, too many men, too many men." But at that point, it wasn't yet,
Yes.
because the
Right.
U.S. only had what, maybe four on the ice, because they had got the
Yeah.
first part of the change. Then the problem is two
Two
Americans, I
guys
think,
gone.
jump on the ice, and then they've got way too many. And then it clearly is too many men. And I think the refs may have maybe looked at it, saw like, well, no, 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 the numbers aren't there real quick before the guys jumped on additionally. And
Yeah.
then they're like, okay, it wasn't. And then they weren't sure of what they saw. And I don't think anybody was until the replay, but still, that's one that you got to take a second look at. Like, even in the moment, just eyes should be locked on the bench. Nothing else is going to happen that you're going to need to see. just look at the bench and make sure you get that.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. Otherwise, I thought, I'm with you. Less calls is fine. And all the calls that were made were, I thought, appropriate, right? Like the hooking calls were all legitimate. The high sticks were automatic, but they were caught. Like I think all the rest of it was fine. I think the only other thing on the officiating slash tournament run side of things, RJ, is just how do you let it be 3-on-3 overtime for the gold medal game? I get it through the group stage. I get it even through the first two rounds of the elimination stage. I am fine with that. You have a tight schedule to keep. You've got multiple games on that ice surface a day. You have to get through it. I was just at the World Juniors back in January. That's how they ran it until you get to the gold medal game. Right? Gold medal game 5-on-5, and we will play this thing as long as it takes. How do you not do that here? I know you have the closing ceremonies and you have broadcasting concerns around that with NBC here in the United States and affiliates all across the world. But it's inexcusable to me that you have a gold medal. It's already just a one game thing. I mentioned earlier how much luck could play a factor in something like that. How you let it be 3-on-3 where just kind of anything can happen. And sure, it's exciting, all of that kind of stuff, but it just feels wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say that regardless of the result. I was saying that in the
Mhm.
second intermission. I was saying it's a tragedy that it's going to be. There's a good chance this game is going to be settled 3-on-3, and sure enough, it was. Like for a game like this, it has to be 5-on-5 for as long as it goes. That's the only real way to do it. And I think the Olympics kind of dropped the ball on that one. And again, still magical ending. It's not going to feel that way because it
Right.
just was a fantastic game. And I think they kind of lucked out there, but still, yeah, it shouldn't have been 3-on-3 to close it out.
Yeah, and I was really worried that it was going to be some really weird scenario that played out and have the 3-on-3 really be a big topic of conversation. Thankfully that didn't happen really. Like it was just kind of, I mean, a little bit I guess it did, right? Like it is the way that this final goal gets scored is a little bit kind of a scenario that only plays out 3-on-3.
Yeah, you don't
But
get that 5-on-5.
no.
Certainly not in overtime with teams playing the way that they would.
Yeah, but it wasn't some of the egregious weird things that we've seen in NHL 3-on-3 over the course of
Yeah.
everything. But yeah, awkward spot there around
It
around
felt a little
everything.
fast too. Like I was just hoping the winning goal didn't come in the first like shift or two, because that's kind of the ultimate tragedy too of the 3-on-3 is if, like, let's say you get the face off win, team cycles it around and then scores maybe 20 seconds in, and you're like, that's it. We had this whole game and it's just the one possession of 3-on-3. It wasn't that, but it still felt a little early for the winner.
It did, because it felt like at that point you survived the two very obvious Connor McDavid trying to be Sidney Crosby opportunities. Talk about pressing. He wanted that his first two shifts, and I guess the second one they get scored on. But it had just kind of felt like, okay, we can actually settle into here, right? Because like the overtime starts and everything's fast and you're kind of up off the edge of your seat. Like I had kind of just relaxed, like, okay, we are going to get, like, guys are going to play this a little conservative and we're just going to let, like, a play will develop and that's how we get the goal. And then of course that's, maybe Canada did that and that's how they ended up getting beat there. But Jack Hughes gets the game winner in overtime. RJ missing parts of his teeth. I won't say missing teeth because it looked like they were all still there, but there was definitely several that were not whole after the Sam Bennett high stick there. I said it last time we talked. I've been saying it the entire tournament. NBC and Team USA and all of the everything around this squad has been focusing on the wrong pair of brothers. I get why you go with the Kachucks. They have the bigger personalities. They really put themselves out there and everything. You have Brady Kachuk mic'd up for this game. I don't know that that really ended up being worth it, but for me, the Hughes brothers should have been the face of Team USA for this tournament. And oh boy, if they had, you get the Quinn Hughes OT winner against Sweden, and then the Jack Hughes OT winner today. Like, why was Jack Hughes not mic'd up for this game? Come on, he's saying stuff beyond just typical Brady Kachuk talking point types things, such as "We're gonna win this game" and "Hey, hey, hey."
Yeah, well, I think they left. I think the Hughes brothers left no choice. They became the face of the tournament, and I don't think it happened right when Jack Hughes scored the overtime winner in this game. I think really it was
Yeah.
Quinn Hughes' overtime winner earlier against Sweden, and that really kind of started. And I could see even the broadcast going with that pivot just a little bit, really focusing on the Hughes family, especially like they had the parents on a lot.
That's the thing too, because their mom is part of the women's team, right?
Right.
One of the part of the coaching staff there. Like, why is this not the story of
It,
the
it should have been
Olympics?
obviously that all along. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But I felt like they started to maybe realize that and pivot just a little bit. Certainly once the U.S. women's team won gold,
Yeah,
but it took too long for them to
it
realize
did.
that. But hey, again, the Hughes brothers, they left no doubt and no choice. They are the stories coming out of this, especially Jack Hughes with the high stick too. It's the
Hmm.
ultimate moment to sell hockey to
Yeah.
newer fans too, because that is one of those hockey stereotypes, right? Of the hockey smile with the teeth missing and all that stuff. Freshly missing, by the way, blood still in his mouth. Like that's one of those moments, yeah, as an American hero, bloody teeth kind of thing. That's going to sell hockey to so many new fans. Like just the images, the pictures that I'm seeing
Hmm.
on social media from that, even if you've never seen a game of hockey before in your life before watching this one, like you saw everything you needed to see.
Yeah, no, you did. It's certainly one of those moments that is universal amongst people who watch sports, where the player gets injured and then they're able to guts it out and then have the big moment to win the game, right? Like that is the storybook. We've seen it in the movie a million times, and we always go, "Oh, that would never happen in real life." But it does. And today was another great example of it happening in real life with Jack Hughes. And yeah, I think hopefully the Hughes brothers and the Hughes family becomes a thing, and that really kind of gets marketed after this tournament. I would be a big fan of that. I think that they're, really good players. I've been critical of Jack Hughes's performance with the Devils in the past, but I think that they are very, very good, especially those two, especially Quinn, and everything that they're doing. And Quinn's going to go to Minnesota and try to, put on a big push there. I think that, yeah, this is a really good opportunity for USA Hockey, for the national broadcasting partners here in the United States to really kind of rally around that family and make the post Olympic push to get as many eyeballs on the NHL, and then turn those eyeballs into legitimate fans who are going to hold over into through the offseason and into next year around the Hughes family, because I think they've done everything that they can for you, including Quinn, who has continued to see the ghosts of Victorian children in Italy, which is his big selling point on social media, and I could eat that content up all day long. I love it.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. I'm sure you saw the picture of him at the women's gold medal game too at the
Yes.
intermission, just
Just
staring at the
standing up,
stage.
everybody else is sitting down, and he's just like, it's so good.
Yeah, and I think critically too, the Hughes brothers, they play in the U.S.,
They do.
which is one of the things that I've always just thought was kind of unfortunate from a selling the game perspective, that you had a lot of the American like star players, their best players, whether it's, I mean, in this game, Connor Hellebuyck, he plays in Winnipeg.
Mhm.
Austin Matthews, he plays in Toronto. Like it's
Captain.
you,
Your
captain of
captain's
the
not
U.S.
even there.
team plays in Toronto. Like it's unfortunate, and for the Canadian guys, like I mean, McDavid's really the only one that that plays in Canada. McKinnon in Colorado, Celebrini in San Jose. A lot of them play in the United States. It makes it a little bit harder. Crosby playing in the U.S. It forever has kind of made it a little bit harder to market there. But I think the Hughes brothers, because they play in the U.S., I think that's also pretty big.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that does help them a lot. Yeah. Where do we even go from
I
here
mean,
now?
yeah, I guess because there's still like the legacy
Yeah.
stuff. I guess if there's any other players, like what this game does for them, and then of course there's Team Canada and like the fallout from that. What do they do? I don't know, which one do you want to go with first?
Well, let's touch on Canada, and then we could talk legacies, because I'm
Okay.
sure I don't know that a lot changes legacy wise for anybody on this Canadian roster. Um, like
There's one guy who I think
there's there's
is
there's
going to
one
be
guy, and I
associated
think
with
that
this
that is
one.
the one thing, because I was gonna say I don't think the fallout's really gonna be that big. Like, what's the fallout from this? Other than like the normal conversations, I think there's gonna be some people complaining about it being 3-on-3 overtime. everybody who watched that game knows that Canada outplayed the US,
Yeah.
really, right? They got goalied. Like, I don't know that there is going to be a lot of fallout. Like, are you not gonna would you not run back with this coaching staff? Like, the coaching staff was fine, the players were fine. Crosby got hurt. That's less than ideal. Josh Morrissey got hurt. That's less than, you know what I mean? Like, you had injuries. The one thing would be maybe goaltending at some point, but like that's always the thing that's talked about with this Canadian roster. And really, Jordan Binnington wasn't that bad through this
No,
tournament.
this wasn't on Bennington. Absolutely not. Like he did everything that you could hope for. And I think the real issue with Canada, and this is if I were them, where I would look in the mirror looking at this tournament, because look, I think they outplayed the US in this game for sure.
Yeah.
And you got goalie. There's no shame in this one. But if you look at the tournament as a whole, certainly the elimination games that they played,
Yeah. They were closer than
they
they should be.
way closer than they should be. And I know the expectations for Canada, it's gold or bust, and you have to look good doing it. And they certainly didn't in this tournament.
Mhm.
But man, I'm really concerned about the fact that the Czechia game, went as close as it did. I'm concerned that the Finland game was as close as it was. And the reason I think both of those games happened that way, it wasn't goaltending. Goaltending isn't what lets you down. It's the fact that, look, for this entire tournament, pretty much, okay, outside the group stage where the opponents were just so bad that, I think that was the case for a lot of the top teams. You were a one-line team, and that should be concerning to you. Yes, you've got McDavid, you've got Celebrini, you've got McKinnon, and that's a dynamite line. And those are, some fantastic players you're going to have going forward. In 4 years, you're going to have all those guys. They're going to be amazing. Where was the secondary scoring for this team, Dylan? Like,
Yeah.
where was the rest of that forward group?
You got it occasionally from some guys, right? Like Mitch Marner has the big goal.
Yeah. Okay, outside of
Crosby
the
had
last
6 points in his 4 games played. Like, so you did have like a little bit, but
Well,
yeah,
I'm
not a
talking the
ton.
games against like actual competition. I'm talking the elimination games, and I'm saying like maybe outside of the last like 5 minutes of regulation
Right.
overtime where you're frantically trying to come back, but like for the first 40 minutes of a game, like where's that superior depth? USA is a different case because like they got a bunch of like this game is a different case because you have a bunch of like close chances and all that stuff. But against Finland, against Czechia, like where's that depth coming through for you?
Well, I hate to poke at the line that you wanted to see and then we got to see and it was incredible, but why, like you
Why
have
did that not get broken
3
up?
top 5 players in the National Hockey League who are all natural centers. Why are they not centering lines 1 through 3? Right? Or obviously Celebrini, it's early, he's 19, whatever, stick him on somebody's wing. But like when things are bad, when Crosby goes down, why is Nathan McKinnon not centering a line? Right? You're telling me having to deal other teams' defenses having to deal with a line being led by Connor McDavid and then a line being led by Nathan McKinnon isn't going to be more trouble than just kitchen sinking everything when they're both out there on the ice?
Well, the idea is with this Canadian roster that you shouldn't have to make that sacrifice. That even if you kitchen sink everything, that the other 9 forwards or I guess 10 forwards that you have should be able to step up and win those matchups down the lineup because at the end of the day, they are better, certainly against Czechia and Finland, than the guys they're matched up against. Like that's where I'd be looking is those guys disappointed.
Well, I
Like,
think
this is a team that should be afforded
yes.
to kitchen
So
sink it
I
with their
think
first line.
I think the bottom 6 wasn't supposed to score. I don't think that was their game plan, right? Because like it's hard for me to look at some of those guys and say like they had a bad tournament because like they were able to go out there and shut other people down. Like Sam Bennett played really well this tournament. He didn't score anything, but he did help
Penalties aside.
get yes. I
I
don't
mean,
know
yeah,
that
you could always say
today's
that
is
caveat with him. Yeah.
but yeah. But like I don't think like that was the idea around that line, right? And I think the same thing kind of with the 4th line, right? Like Brandon Hagel played a really good tournament on the 4th line. He didn't score a lot, but you know what? Nobody was really doing anything when they were out there. So I think like that was kind of the idea was our top group will be so front loaded that they will do all the scoring and then our bottom 2 lines just have to make sure that nothing bad happens when they're out there and we're good. And you could argue that that is a bad philosophy and they should be more aggressive up and down the lineup and I think that's partly what you are arguing for. But I outside of like Seth Jarvis, who I kind of already brought up, I don't think anybody in that bottom 6 actually played that bad. I agree they didn't score, but it didn't always look like they were pressing to score. It looked like they were pressing for possession and just control of the ice, and then it's up to McDavid's line to score when they're out there.
Yeah, and I guess it should be if you have a proper, I guess that's what you're arguing is you have a proper top six. That's two lines that
Yeah.
should be able to score for you, and you separate out a little bit. I just think with this group of forwards, like you would hope that like these are guys that play top minutes on their team. These are guys that are 30 goal scorers in the NHL. A lot of them.
Mhm.
I know you're like, well, they're bottom six guys that I expect to score. These are guys that can score against the NHL's best, and they often do. And nobody kind of stepped up. I mean, the one play I can think of really was basically individual effort from Nick Suzuki, to tie the game against Czechia.
Yeah.
Like that was huge for them, and like those are the kind of plays I think they needed more of from their depth forwards because like, Nick Suzuki can score. Like
Mhm.
Sam Bennett, we know. I mean, he's not a good example, but like Sam Reinhart can score. I think he should have played more.
Yeah, I don't know why he didn't play more. Because not only does he score, but he's also really good defensively. It's not like a Kyle Connor on Team USA scenario where it's like he's can score, but we're concerned about the defense and everything. Like Sam Reinhart was up for the Selke last year. Like go watch what he does for Florida in the playoffs. Like the dude can play 200 feet. And he steps
Yeah,
up in the big moments scoring wise. Why is he the lowest guy ice time wise? That made no sense to me.
right. But I mean, even the guys who did play, like Mark Stone can score. He's got 60 points in 41
Yeah.
games this season for Vegas. Mitch Marner can score. Like, where were any of those guys? There's no reason for this Canada team, even with the roster you've selected, all that stuff, to be a one line team.
Yeah.
And no, I don't blame the top line because I know you're putting them all together and you're kind of kitchen sinking it with the top line. But if that's the best line in the tournament, which I think it was,
Yeah, no question.
that shouldn't be an issue. Like, I'm not going to blame the line that was the best line in the tournament.
No, and I'm not blaming them. I'm blaming the
Or
idea
I'm
of
not
having
going to
them together.
advocate for breaking up the line that's the best line in
Yeah,
the tournament.
that's fair. I get it. Canada did lead the tournament in goals for, shots on goal, second in scoring efficiency and in shooting percentage. So it wasn't like a huge issue for them. But yes, like if you break down how many of the 28 goals they scored this tournament were that top line, it's a pretty large percentage. I would be curious though to do that for some of the other teams because I think like this is one of the things that, and we talked about this a little bit when we broke down the group stage. A country like Czechia, a team like Finland has is that team unit work ethic where it is we have a very specific game plan and it doesn't matter if you're first, second, third, or fourth line, right wing, this is your job as part of the cycle, right? This is your job when back checking. And it's Canada, they largely leave the players up to handle things on their own. And I've talked about this for years when it comes to especially World Juniors because I think it really bites Canada bad there. But the idea of just kind of going with the mercenary team, get all the best players together and then let them kind of figure it out. I think other countries have caught up to that. Hockey is a sport, particularly when you're talking about one game elimination scenarios, where if you kind of grind out a game and you play mistake free, you're going to make it a low scoring, close game. And you're going to put yourself in a position to win. And I think that Canada, those are the games where Canada struggles, right? Like they allow themselves, and we've seen it for years at World Juniors, and now we're seeing it at the senior stage. These really old guys like Macklin Celebrini. But we're seeing it at the senior stage where look, they're not so much better than everybody else that they can't get dragged down by really efficient team play, right? Efficient team play from a country like Czechia, Slovakia, Finland is going to put them into a close one goal game scenario. And yes, they're going to find their way out of that the vast majority of the time anyway, but it's going to put them in a spot where yeah, occasionally they are going to get upset and they have to figure out a way of kind of dealing with that.
Yeah, and if you're looking at things to change, I think it's easy to say, okay, the secondary scoring needs to be there. You need somebody outside of your top line to score. Looking at the names on that list, I don't know what you change. Again, like I said, these are 20, 30 goal scorers in the NHL. Who different do you bring? It's tough.
Yeah. I don't know that there's anybody that you could bring different for Canada, but I think then it just becomes, yeah, question of maybe usage or pairings.
Yeah.
Other than
It's not
also
this because
you
it's
don't have a
not this
great blue
game that
line.
bugs me if I'm Canada. It's the previous two where it gets
Yeah,
too close.
I agree with you. I felt like largely most guys stepped up in this one, and they got goalied. But I think some of this also comes down to the blue line, right? Like moving the puck. Like USA has better blue liners when it comes to moving the puck up the ice and kind of getting their forwards into a better position. How many rushes for Canada were started with the forwards playing below the dots, right? They're getting the puck below the dots and then carrying it all the way up the ice, right? And the Canada blue liners can be effective offensively, but I think of them primarily being guys that are able to pinch up in the offensive zone and join the attack there. And that's what a lot of them did today. But how many times were we seeing like breakouts up the ice really being triggered by a defenseman in their own zone, moving the puck up to a forward at the blue line or in the neutral zone for Canada? It wasn't happening at all.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, the defenseman too. I think a lot of guys are used to on their NHL teams being the guy to kind of carry the puck up to move it um, themselves by skating rather than. I mean, I think of guys who are great skaters. Cale Makar can absolutely
Yes.
do that. Shea Theodore can absolutely do that on an NHL roster. They should be the guys doing that. It's a little bit different of a game here. And oddly, I think the one guy who maybe doesn't do that, Drew Doughty, who I definitely criticized being on this Team Canada, he only plays 8:45. He only gets that much ice time in this game. Not really a big factor there. And I just think that's going to be the case because he's the worst defenseman on your roster. But like, he's one of the few guys who actually is not good enough skating and moving the puck up himself that he kind of has to make those passes up.
I actually thought, as limited as he was, and really through the last couple games, like the games that we're talking about where they struggled, I actually thought he did a good job of kind of staying in his lane and just handling his
He
business.
was fine. He didn't try and do too much, and I know I guess that's why he's there.
Yeah.
But I will say, if it's down to him, or maybe if you're going to play somebody like 9 minutes or less a night, if it's down to him, or maybe someone like an Evan Bouchard, if your power play, can't get it done in the key moments, like in this game, I think they would have liked to have an Evan Bouchard on that 5-on-3.
I think for that,
Even if he only
that
played,
one
even if he only
moment,
played like 2 minutes beside that in the game.
if we're talking about this team being a team that gets dragged down into 2-1 performances where in overtime where anything can happen, I don't think they want Evan Bouchard. I think that
You literally put them out there on the power play and at no other time.
yeah, you could do that. You could do that. But I just think like that is part of it. And I do really wonder if Josh Morrissey's healthy. What does that look like? Because I feel like he's somebody that they would have utilized a lot on the second pair, and he's again very good skater himself, but I feel like he would put his forwards in a better position to make plays rather than kind of take it on himself or just make them do everything, right? Like that's kind of the middle ground, because you had some guys on this D that wanted to do everything themselves, and then other guys that were like just kind of hands off and like, okay, Connor McDavid, just take the puck up the entire length of the ice. Mitch Marner, take the puck up the entire length of the ice. And you need somebody in that middle ground who is going to be comfortable making the pass up to the forwards in the neutral zone. Try to get some speed that way. Try to catch the opposing team off balance a little bit, or with only 3 or 4 back instead of all 5. Because so many times when Canada enters the zones, all 5 players for the other team were back. Right. I particularly think about that in the Finland game. Like Finland was always ready for that. They were always like, look, they're fast skaters. Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, Macklin Celebrini. These guys are fast, but we will have time to regroup and we will be ready for them on the zone entry. And I feel like that limited them a lot, particularly then when you're talking about lines that aren't that top line, right? Because as great as Nick Suzuki, Mitch Marner, and Mark Stone are, they don't quite have the speed to be able to carry the puck 180 feet and catch the other team off guard.
No, they really don't. I guess I'm just kind of disappointed by their lack of ability to get inside at that point.
Yeah. Well, they did that as well.
Get to those middle areas of the ice.
Yeah, yeah. They struggle with that too.
So that's just kind of where it breaks down for me.
Yeah. No, they definitely struggled in both of those regards. That being said, Canada will be fine.
Yeah, they'll be okay. On the panic meter, it's still not very high in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. And I think that particularly when you're talking about 4 years from now at the next Olympics, you're going to be talking about what, 23-year-old Macklin Celebrini, who's done God knows what at the National Hockey League level. And you're still going to have Nathan McKinnon, who will be more in a senior leadership role, or, he will be feeling more senior anyway. But McDavid will still relatively be in his prime, certainly within the prime age for a superstar. You're going to have guys like Mitch Marner still out there able to contribute on, play them on the wing. I do wonder if we see like Celebrini as a center 4 years from now.
That wouldn't surprise me. I think he'll be ready for it. I think no brainer to play him at wing in this tournament, of
Agreed.
course, and
Yep.
worked wonders for his confidence, I think. But yeah, we might see him as a center. I mean, also, on the boat, you have Matthew Schaefer, almost certainly.
Yes.
You'll have some reinforce. Might have Landon Dupont.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many guys that we could go down the list of all the
Yeah,
top
they're
young
going to have
players.
reinforcements.
They're going to have reinforcements. They're going to be okay. I think the bigger question then becomes stuff like, again, the quiet, slow the game down, Sidney Crosby leadership ships type stuff maybe isn't there. And that becomes maybe more of an issue for them. On the US side of things, or just to close things out for Canada, legacies being made or destroyed based on this, I don't really feel like that's the case.
Okay, no legacies made. Well, I mean, on the Canada side, you're saying?
Yeah, on the Canada side.
Yeah, because as I look at that picture of on the American side of Jack Hughes with the American
Yeah,
flag,
yeah,
and
yeah.
the
We're gonna
wreath
get to
and
that in a
everything,
second. We can
legacies
maybe
made.
close on
Yeah,
it.
on
But
the
yes.
Canada side, no legacies destroyed, but Nathan McKinnon, I think, is going to be the one Canadian player associated with this game between missing that wide open net on a play that should have been the game winning goal. And then also, remember, he was the one that was beat in overtime. Zach Werenski just beats him one
Yeah.
on one in that battle to send the pass over to Jack Hughes. Rough night for Nathan McKinnon.
Yes. I think that, yeah, maybe some people bring him up. I think the reason that I wouldn't say that is just because nobody is going to obsess and have that haunt them for the rest of their life more than Nathan McKinnon. Like however rough Canadian fans are going to get with him, or the Toronto media or anything like that, Nathan McKinnon is going to do 10 times worse to himself.
Yeah. And well, that's part of it, I think, is everyone knows the kind of person
Yeah,
that
like
he is, and
I
that's going to be haunting him.
right, like I legit think like there's going to be an element of, hands off when it comes to criticizing some of those moments. You'll bring it up because you have to, but I don't think that people are going to really like dig into him the way they would say if it was Mitch Marner,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like I think everybody's going to go like, "Oh, it's Nathan McKinnon, like he's going to handle that." like
Yeah.
we don't have to say anything, he knows.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're the one asking, like, good luck to the journalist who I know are going to have to ask him about it.
I
Like,
said that during the broadcast. I was like, I feel before the game was even over, but it was after he missed that goal. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for all the reporters in Colorado who are going to have to talk to Nathan McKinnon about how this tournament went, because that is going to be unbelievably uncomfortable.
yeah, I do not envy their jobs. And I'm sure as soon as they've asked and you get it out of the way, they're going to drop that. But it's also tough for him too. And for a lot of these players that, like, the ones that are tougher on themselves,
Yeah.
because like anything that you mess up, or any open net you miss, or any big moment that doesn't go your way in the NHL, you get to go back at it at the very most, a few months from then, right? The next season starts, you get to try again. It's going to be a little while. Like,
Mhm.
you can't, even if McKinnon goes on to like win the Stanley Cup this year, it'll be a second cup. So, but still, like, that'll be great. He'll love it. But there's going to be that part of his mind where it doesn't really make it right in this game because it's not the international competition. Like, in order for him, I think, in his mind, to make it right, he needs to be on Team Canada next time they're best on best. And it needs to be against USA, and they need to win.
Yes. No, I'm with you. I'm totally with you that inside Nathan McKinnon's head, that is the scenario that needs to play out. The player that I was going to say for Team Canada that this in some ways affects is Connor McDavid, because it's another thing that he hasn't won, right? He didn't get it done. Crosby goes down, the C is on his sweater, and they didn't get it done. The expectation was gold. and anything less than that is going to be failure, and they failed, and he has to deal with that again, right? And I don't know, go for it.
I guess here's the thing. I feel like there's mitigating factors with so many of these players where, with McKinnon, it's how tough he is on himself. With McDavid, I mean, how much in your mind does it mitigate it? The fact that like they did play best on best US versus Canada a year ago. And I know it's not the stage of the Olympics, but it is four nations. It's largely the same two teams. And not only did Canada win, but McDavid was the clutch winner. He
Hmm.
scored the winning goal at the big moment. And so it doesn't really feel like he kind of failed on the big stage because just a year ago he succeeded in the ultimate way.
Look, I don't think any of it matters, right? I think Connor
Yeah,
McDavid's the best
I
player on the
know.
planet. I think all of this stuff is dumb. But when we're talking about the legacy stuff and what the media is going to act like, he's been to two Stanley Cup finals, lost them both. He's been to the Olympic gold medal game and he lost it. You know what nobody brings up? The four nations face off, because nobody really knows what that is or remembers that it happens outside of the true diehards. You know what I mean? Like it's not one of those things. It's really easy to lump the Olympics in with Stanley Cup. He doesn't have gold at the Olympics and he doesn't have a Stanley Cup. Like that's a really easy thing to say. It's hard to then be like, but he did score the OT winner in that weird tournament that the NHL had in lieu of an All-Star game last year.
Look, I'll give you that with the Stanley Cup. Absolutely. I think that's a separate thing. Like if Connor McDavid never, doesn't win a Stanley Cup until he does that, that's the huge defining thing for his legacy at this point. I just think on the international stage, he's 1-1,
Yeah,
which is not interesting. But especially, I think a lot of it depends also on where the future of the international game goes.
it does.
Because if the NHL steps back from the Olympics, they kind of dump the IOC, and it's just all NHL run, World Cup of hockey, whatever it is, or they do it, Four Nations, World Cup, whatever. Then I think the Four Nations tournament looks a little bit more legit, and it kind of gets lumped in with like this new run of
Yeah, I
this
agree.
generation's best on best. And so if that happens, I think you look at it like, okay, he's 1-1. He won, then he lost, and because he got the winner too, like he clearly was on the winning side. That said, if there's like no NHL event for some reason in the next 4 years and it's just Olympics and that's how we're hashing this out, then I think you might have a point.
Yeah. I just know when he wrote that Players Tribune article, he talked about how important that game was for him because he finally won something. Since he's been a professional, he just doesn't feel like he's won anything. And I think that putting that out there right before the Olympics, unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people that are then going to judge him for that.
Yeah.
And
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 also,
again,
I
I
mean,
think it's all unfair. Like I really do, but I do feel like that is something that's going to happen.
yeah, and I think again, it's hard to judge just by looking at somebody's face, but seeing his face as he was being given that silver medal right before we started recording, like right before I came
I
in
was going to
here.
say I didn't even see it. I was dealing with stuff.
No, I figured, yeah, you were working on your internet stuff. I, he feels every bit of that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not convinced that like everyone should think that or the legacy thing. I'm convinced he thinks that.
Oh, for sure. It's haunting him. The ghosts that Quinn Hughes sees are the ghosts that haunt Connor McDavid. Like
Yeah.
they're not haunting Quinn Hughes. He just has to look at them.
he just
They're haunting Connor McDavid. That is very clear. All right, on the American side of things, we talked about Connor Hellebuyck. We've talked about Mike Sullivan coaching wise. Who else on this American roster? Because obviously, first gold in 46 years. All of these guys are going to be remembered for that. This is going to be a career defining thing in the eyes of the general public in the United States for all of these guys. I think this trumps some Stanley Cups for some of these guys. Just the fact that they were part of US team winning gold. Like that is just a thing that matters for a lot of people that otherwise don't care about hockey. So I think just to get that out of the way, legacy defining moment for all of them. You did it. Congrats, boys. Right?
Yeah, the team will live forever in history.
Yeah.
They'll be lumped together also because they're the first since 1980, the Miracle on Ice team. They're going to be lumped together with that legendary team. I think there's very few similarities between those two
Yeah,
teams,
virtually none.
but they're going to be thought of together.
Yes, I think, and then I'm really kind of happy about that. Like, I've never been a super, like, patriotic, rah-rah, Team USA guy. You know this about me.
Oh yeah.
Um, but the one thing about this that I am genuinely happy about is that, okay, somebody else has done it since 1980, and so we don't have to rehash 1980 constantly, right? Again, not to take away from those guys, incredible moment for them, but it has been 46 years of just constantly going back to that moment, having Mike Ruzioni on the broadcast, right? Like just going to that well perpetually forever. And now we'll have a second highlight or a different highlight package that can kind of be part of that conversation in 10, 15 years time as some of these guys retire from the NHL and move into different fields. They'll be able to take over some of those roles, and we'll finally kind of have a little bit of a changing of the guard from that 1980s team, that 1980 team, because I feel like that has kind of desperately been needed. I, I can tell you what Mike Ruzioni is going to say before he says it because I've heard him say it my entire life, right? Every Olympics.
Yeah, and I mean, if you listen to what he said today too, it seems like he's kind of ready for
He
that too. His
did.
whole thing was like, look, what we did was great, but our moment's done. It's all about these guys. What we did, that's over. It's about these guys playing right now, and I think he's probably glad that they won.
Yeah. So I think for me, that's the thing that arguably I'm most excited about is just like, okay, there is another, US hockey men's team that has won gold, and we can kind of focus on those guys and focus on players who are still active in the NHL, and people can go and watch these guys. Like go to your, whatever major city you live in. If you got an NHL team, you could go and see these guys, whether they play for your team or they're coming into town. Like having that is going to be huge for the National Hockey League because you haven't had that in 46 years.
Right. And as much as I get on the NHL and we get on the NHL for kind of missing these marketing opportunities, that is something they have not been able to play up. You
Yes.
can't say you have an American gold medalist playing here. And I think that is something really that Americans just generally care about. People
Hmm.
that, and especially the bump you get after the Olympics, where a lot of people that probably unknown the rest of the year. I mean, let's be honest, how many people knew about Alyssa Liu a year ago?
Right.
That she was in the popular consciousness, probably not a lot, but now, she's like the number one star of the moment. And I think you could kind of get that with a lot of these Americans who won the gold, and you really got to capitalize on this momentum for the rest of the season. If you're the NHL and there's 23 guys you could all point to on their various teams and try and play that up.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. I think it's going to be huge for them. Hopefully, fingers crossed, NHL doesn't drop the ball on that.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath on that because the NHL is never great with that. I guess the other thing I'm happy about too with USA winning is just getting rewarded for the progress they've made in developing players.
Yes.
Because you go back to 2010, and I mean that team got very close. They got to
Hmm.
overtime, but it definitely felt like USA Hockey was just in a different league
Hmm.
than what Canada was able to produce, and the strides they've taken in the 16 years since then, especially things like the national team development
Yes.
program, something I know you've praised a lot. I feel wrong being the one to bring it up here,
It's fine.
but where you have the best players your country has to offer together on one team,
Hmm.
learning how to play as a group that helps you not just the World Juniors, but in these larger tournaments. I know that's a point you've made to me forever. You're finally seeing that come to fruition and being successful at the senior level. And I think that was an innovation.
Hmm.
And they've put a lot of work and a lot of thought into that sort of thing. And so it's good to see that rewarded.
Yeah, I'm curious to go back through. Obviously did not have time because we wanted to record this kind of as soon as we could. But I'm very curious to go back through and see how many of these guys played together on the development team. You know what I mean? Because I know that
Yeah.
there are some. I mean, the ones that immediately came to mind for me was Jack Hughes and Matt Boldy. Like they were
Yeah.
together on the U.S. national development team. Like
Two
that
goal
is huge,
scorers.
right? So like that is huge, and having those guys together, being able to do what they do is really important. Having that already having that familiarity, kind of having some of that, I think it's a really good blend of kind of what I was talking about, the difference between Canada and a lot of the European countries. Of those European countries, they play that same style all growing up, all through the different levels of national program. It's all very much the same. Everybody's playing together through all of that. They build a lot of chemistry. They build a lot of team structure into that, so that when you get to the Olympics, when you get to World Juniors, when you get to the World Championships, everybody's on the same page. They know what to do. You don't have to worry about the fact that you have a bunch of guys coming in from the NHL and they're not as familiar with everybody and the chemistry might be off at first. Team USA, I feel like Hockey USA Hockey is kind of going a little bit of a different approach where they're doing some of that. And I think it's laying a good foundation that these guys can then fall back on and go back to. And I think that we'll really see that at the next Olympics, because then you're going to really see that next crop of players. Like this whole time I was watching this, RJ, and I was watching the speed of these games and just the way that the game itself was really played. And there was one player that for some reason I couldn't shake, and I was just like, wow, you know who would be really good in this tournament right now? Logan Cooley. And like
Yeah.
obviously there was no chance he was going to make this roster this year, but I was like, that's the kind of like style that I think hockey is headed towards, right? You talk about making plays where you flip it up in the air over the D and all of that kind of stuff. Logan Cooley is the player for me that really, is the poster child for that next wave of what the NHL should look like. And there's probably better players for that. Macklin Celebrini being one of them, Jack Hughes
Yeah.
maybe being another. But for some reason, it's really Logan Cooley in my mind. But I think about guys like him who came up through the U.S. National Development Team program and all the guys that he played with that are also going to probably be part of that American roster next time around. And I just think that, yeah, they I think not just because they won gold this year, but I think they have like a legitimate claim to be considered favorites if Canada doesn't kind of shake how they do things up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean they also have reinforcements coming. We talked about the Canadian reinforcements, but the Americans should have some younger players. Again,
Yeah.
it's nobody that's going to be like superstars on the level of, McDavid will still be very good. Celebrini, even DuPont and Schaefer coming on the blue line, like that is scary. But as long as they have this group of players that are still in that star conversation
Hmm.
that can show up in the big moments. And I think Cooley's one of them who very well could be a factor 4 years from now. They'll be all right. Like, nobody was looking going into this tournament about Matt Boldy being the difference maker or the guy who's going to just transcend everything from a skill perspective. But he ends up being the one guy to make a really skilled play that creates something out of nothing in that game. And it ended up making a big difference.
Yeah. No, it does. It's gonna be really interesting to see how that kind of shakes out individual player wise for Team USA. Legacy making moments. Obviously, Jack Hughes forever.
Oh, yeah.
That goal is going to be shown over and over and over. Almost wish that it was a little bit more obvious, like how it goes in and everything, because
I wasn't sure the puck went in.
I
I
wasn't
was trying to
either.
find the puck and I couldn't see it in the net.
Yeah, there wasn't, and really when they were going through the different like replays of it, I was like, damn, there's not like one like this is the moment angle that kind of
Yeah.
captured it. That's the one negative in all this. But Jack Hughes is going to be able to dine on this forever.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm already seeing that picture of him, kind of fist
Yeah.
up American flag draped over him. That smile, like that's going to be circulated everywhere.
Yeah. Who else for you? Because there's a couple guys that I think have not won at the National Hockey League level, right? They don't have a Stanley Cup, anything like that. But I think that this means a lot for how they'll be perceived. And there's obviously Austin Matthews to be talked about, captain of this Team USA squad. But for me, the number one guy that it kind of just proves like, look, this is a player who's played a long time, has always been on the fringes of being considered a star. Team he's on has really struggled since he took it over. Dylan Larkin, like
Hmm.
wins something legitimately, played really well throughout this tournament, great role player, depth scoring option, all of that kind of stuff. I feel like Dylan Larkin being a gold medalist really means something for his legacy as a player when you look back at it, because yeah, he took over for a team coming off of back-to-back dynasties almost, right, in Detroit, and then they've just gone through this prolonged rebuild. He's always been very good in Detroit. He's never had any support around him. He's never really won anything. He's been part of a huge long playoff drought for them, but he is a gold medalist, and I think that's going to go a long way to how people think back on him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's was maybe the best American forward, if not one of the best throughout the whole
He was
tournament.
so good.
And I think a lot of these guys, ultimately, at the end of the day in their careers, they're going to be judged on what they do in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Mhm.
That's going to be the biggest legacy defining thing for them. That's not something Larkin's had really much of a chance
I know, we don't
to
even know
even
what that would
do
look
or
like.
or make a mark, right? I mean, he just hasn't really, the way it's timed out and the team Red Wings teams that he's been on hasn't had that opportunity. And so we don't really know, or we didn't really know, I guess, kind of how he can do on the big stage like this against the best in the world. And I think he showed everyone in this tournament that he's got the right stuff, and that I think yeah, this will be, might be the highlight of his career. Looking back at it, depending on
What
how the Red Wings continue to do, he'll probably get a shot at the playoffs this year. I'm really interested to see how he
mhm.
does, because he actually has a pretty decent Red Wings team around him. I mean, I'm going back to check the standings because I haven't done that in a while.
I know.
But Detroit's in a good spot. Yeah, they're third in the Atlantic. Like, they're gonna make the playoffs unless they have a pretty big collapse. He's gonna get a real shot at it.
Yeah, prior to this, he's only played in the NHL playoffs once before, and it was his rookie year. So you
Yeah.
can't judge him on that really, right? And so yeah, I that was one of the players that when they were showing everybody celebrating on the ice, and I was like, okay, who does this kind of mean a lot for? I was like, this feels like it really means a lot for Dylan Larkin, and all of the hard work that he's put in throughout his career, and all of that kind of stuff. He was the player that really jumped out to me. What about you?
I mean, for me, you mentioned Austin Matthews, and I think this is, if we're talking about legacies on the American team, outside of the obvious ones like Hellebuyck and Hughes, I do think this one's going to do a lot for
It
him,
does, yeah.
because it showed that he can get it done in the big game, and that it might just be a Leafs thing or just a playoffs thing at the very least, for him. Because I thought he was good in this game.
Mhm,
He gets an assist on that first goal, and then also just one of the better players defensively too. And that's
mhm.
something that the Americans really had to be good at, because they were doing a lot of defending in this one. I thought Matthews was really solid. I didn't like him passing up the opportunity to shoot on that one play on the power play. Like, I get what he was going for with trying to make that pass over to Kachuk. I want to see more of that shooting mentality. I know Edzo was all over it
I
on the
know.
broadcast, but like, man, don't be afraid of the moment. Just like, be that guy. You're Austin Matthews. You've scored like 60 goals before. You can do this.
Bennington is right in his face though.
He
Like
is.
like
I
like
get that.
Bennington is so hard committed. I totally understand what he was going for. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. I thought
But I
Edzo laid
still,
it on a little too much,
well, yeah, I mean,
but
look,
but
that's his
yes.
thing. I mean,
Yeah.
also it came on the heels of, I think, a previous one where an
Yeah.
American player didn't shoot it on a kind of obvious one they could have. So I get that from Edzo just in the context. But yeah, with Matthews, I think also just being the captain of this group too,
Right.
because that's another thing that's been super, maligned for him, is the leadership.
Mhm.
And captain of this American team, the first American gold medal winners, since 1980. It's hard to question the leadership now.
Yeah, and he's really, when you look at the core for the Toronto Maple Leafs, he's the one who who's left, right? And who could have been in a position to do this. Obviously Mitch Marner gets the big overtime goal a couple games back, and Mark Stone had that comment about how it seems like it's just a Toronto thing. He's never noticed anything with Mitch Marner not being clutch in those moments, and things. And I certainly think that if Mitch Marner was still in Toronto, this would be that would be a topic of conversation, that he was part of the team that didn't do it, that failed, right? And how new that is, right? Or not new. But I think the fact that like Austin Matthews is like the guy in Toronto now, and it's him and Nylander for sure, but Nylander obviously being in Sweden and all of that kind of stuff. I think it's huge for him, and it's going to be really interesting to see how Leafs fandom and Leafs Nation responds to it, because he just beat them, and but now they also know that he can do it, and so then it also then comes back around to what does that mean for us if he doesn't do it here?
Yeah, and well, if I'd have to imagine the perspective of a Leafs fan, if it was me, I'd feel just double bad about this because, of course, I'd probably be rooting for Canada if I'm a Leafs fan, and then also just again to see that he can't like that's not it. It's not just that the Austin Matthews just can't get it done. He doesn't have it in him. I at least feel like some sense of peace with that if I just figured that was the case,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
that's clearly not it.
I was gonna say, like, do you lean into like, well, at least we know now that he's not the problem. like,
I guess so.
like
This is
it,
helping you figure out what the issue really is. I guess you're eliminating possible scenarios here. So this is yeah.
I
Who
think
could it
most of
be?
us
Who
from
could
the
it be?
outside could have said that all along. Maybe Austin
Yeah,
Matthews is
that's true.
probably not the problem, but maybe now internally at least he can kind of hang his hat on that. Um, other players, RJ, for you, Charlie McAvoy. I think obviously the big save there, but kind of being the leader of the decor. It felt like for this Team USA squad, and then obviously after not being able to participate last year in the Four Nations face-off because he got that staph infection, being treated after trying to play through injury at that Four Nations face-off. I'm really happy for Charlie McAvoy that he was able to not only get the gold and be a part of this Olympic tournament, but also have the big moment of stepping in over Hellebuyck when he's down, making that big clutch save, and everything that he was able to do.
Yeah, and he had his ups and downs in this
He
tournament
did.
too. I mean, I look at the some penalties that maybe were not at opportune times, but he did have the big moment. Yeah, with all that he went through, I'm happy that he was able to get the gold. And a lot of the downs are not going to be remembered because he ended up winning the gold. So that's good. I mean, also on the blue line for the U.S. in a similar way to Dylan Larkin, Zach Werenski, who
Hmm.
really just hasn't, because he's been in Columbus his whole career, hasn't really had the chance to kind of show what he can do on the biggest stages. But I thought he looked good. He didn't play a ton in this game, but he made a big play when it mattered in overtime. I thought he looked solid all tournament. So Werenski in my book too. Not quite again the same huge performance as Larkin, but like he's going to be on that highlight clip, sending the pass over and winning the battle against Nathan McKinnon one on
Yep.
one and sending the pass over to Jack Hughes.
No, really happy for Zach Rowensky to have that moment, to have the opportunity to show what he can do. I mean, we talked about this a bit last year when he had the performance, and it was like, wow, he finally stayed healthy and was able to get some recognition for the ludicrous amount of points that he could put up. But he also plays good defense and all of that. And it was kind of like it felt like finally he was able to take center stage a little bit last year, and really it was just because he was healthy. Like he did nothing different than what he normally does, other than he just didn't get hurt. He was able to play 78 games or whatever it was. Um, and I was really happy for him. I'm with you. Also, I thought really good moment. Him and Matthew Kachuk and Austin Matthews with the Johnny Gaudreau jersey afterwards. I have to think that this means a lot for particularly Matthew Kachuk and Zach Rowensky, who are both close with Johnny before he passed, and teammates of his. I think that also probably meant a lot for Zach and for, of course, Matthew Kachuk.
Yeah, and that was a great to see a great storyline in all this too. I mean, they've had the Gaudreau jersey in the locker room with them throughout the tournament. Like it's definitely something that's been on their minds throughout everything. And I believe, again, I was rushing on here as the ceremony and the pictures and everything, but I believe they had Johnny Gaudreau's kids in the gold medal photo
Oh,
that they took with
nice.
the team and everything. I got to check on that to make sure that's correct, but it looked like that's what they were doing, which I mean, that's an awesome gesture there too. So, another like feel good element to this of USA winning.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, it was cool to see that his whole family was there. You could tell that it meant so much for them that they were able to win. And yeah, you could just really see it for those guys that were teammates of his in the past there. Anybody else on
Oh
this squad?
yeah, one more guy, PK God Brock Faber.
I know.
Like again, didn't do a ton of flashy stuff in this tournament, and I thought even had a couple bad moments early on, but like on the PK, he was awesome. The active stick in passing lanes, so many passing lanes that he took away, often at the last second too, kind of baiting teams into thinking they had it. But like, I didn't know he had that level of his game defensively, and I know he's good. Like he was one of the players that last year on this podcast I said I would give one of the $10 million contracts to. So I took a big step there. Kind of regretted it a little bit later, but like he looked so good in this tournament to be at the very end, especially with that perfect PK.
Yeah, and it really was all tournament long. Like he really elevated his game. I think I haven't seen too much from him in Minnesota soda since the Quinn Hughes trade. So I don't know how much of this has been since the Quinn Hughes trade. He's been able to elevate his game and kind of get back to it. But I was really impressed with what I saw from him throughout this tournament. Just every game when I watched Team USA, he would do something that would draw my eye to him, particularly defensively, but also offensively. Like again, like I talked about with Canada, Brock Faber, one of those guys for Team USA, able to feed those forwards, put those forwards in a really good spot to go out there and make plays, regardless of what line it was. Yeah, I agree. Brock Faber had a really nice tournament. Just a couple other guys just to shout out. I guess Tage Thompson really
Oh yeah.
providing some depth and the power play scoring that he had for Team USA throughout this tournament. But nice to see Tage Thompson kind of have some success and win something again. Part of a team that's been in a really long drought in Buffalo there, but Tage Thompson gets to be a winner and really solidly contribute. Really impressed with what he was able to do in this one, and then also like
Another
Brock.
one of those guys who could, for the first time, really be able to show what he can do in the playoffs
Yeah,
this year if they make it.
yeah, if Buffalo's able to make it, I'd be really excited for that. Slavin did what he always does. He was incredible all the time. It's kind of boring to talk about him almost at this point, just being good. But Brock Nelson, also for me, I thought handled the role that he needed to handle so amazing. Really did a great job of kind of being whatever Team USA needed game by game, his line to be. He really just embodied it, was able to go out there and just take care of things whatever they needed. He was always able to do it for them. So I thought probably potentially more so than any other forward on this team, Brock Nelson, just like ultimate utility player.
Yeah, I think he was the ultimate embodiment of understood the assignment.
Yeah, yeah. But it takes that to win, right? Like we gave credit to like JT Miller and Vincent Trocheck for doing that and being those kind of like role players. Brock Nelson kind of had to go both ways. He had to be offensive at times and take over that way and have his line be the line to go out there and score. Other times he needed to be the shutdown line and take care of things against some tough competition. I thought he really handled that very well, and be interesting to see what he does come postseason time in Colorado. Having been there for a full year now after last year, just coming in at the trade deadline.
Yeah, some awkward conversations with teammates when they get back.
Yeah, I mean they can just
Kinnan and McCarr and Taves.
yeah, they could also just like flash their Stanley Cup rings.
Yeah, just bond over that. Yeah, that's true. The three of them just feel
You
like,
can be
hey,
like, you guys got yours, now I have mine. It's kind of figure it out that way. Yeah, I think does it do much for you? There's like obviously the Kachuk brothers. We haven't talked about them a ton. Does this do a lot for you when it comes to Matthew Kachuk, who's been to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals, who's gotten the back-to-back cups? Does Matthew Kachuk being a gold medalist like raise him on any sort of list for you as far as either greatest American born players or anything like that, just kind of his overall status? Because it feels like for me that it should, but I've also been somebody who's been a real big fan of his game going all the way back for him, and I've always kind of felt like he could be this if put in the right situation.
yeah. And I know we talked about like hypothetical awards votes and stuff before the Stanley Cup years, and you were putting Kachuk in the Hart Trophy conversation when nobody really was. So you've been on this from early. But I think for me, it does. He's getting to the point where he's amassing a collection of hardware that is very rare for any hockey player to do, between the Olympic gold, the 2 Stanley Cups, the 3 Cup finals, and being a key element in those as well. And having a couple 100-point seasons too, just to boot. Like, he's not a depth guy. He's shown he can score triple-digit points at various points in his career. He's probably not that player right now, but yeah, I mean, list how many guys have accomplished what he has in the hockey world. It's a very short list.
Yeah, and certainly when you're talking about Americans.
Yeah, that's true among American players too. There's very few.
It's a very few. It's about what, him and 2 other guys on this team.
Yeah, that's true. You have
That's
to be
your
on this
list.
team. Yeah.
It's him and Jack Eichel and who's the other one? There was like one more, I think. But yeah, it's I do think like
Eichel doesn't have 2 cups.
right. No, I don't, does anybody on this team have 2 cups? There's only one other guy who does have a cup. Who is it?
I should be able to get this right away.
It's not McAvoy.
I was gonna
Oh,
say,
it's
yeah, he was
Gensel.
too late
Jake
for 11.
Gensel.
Oh, Gensel, yeah, there you go. You should know that one.
Does Gensel have 2? I think Gensel has 2.
Oh yeah, because he would have been
Yeah.
on both. Yeah,
So it's
so he's
him
got
and
2. Okay,
Jake Gensel.
all right. And I think Kachuk,
I'd put
legacy
him,
wise, probably
yeah,
ahead of Jake
I'd put
Gensel.
him ahead of Jake Gensel, yeah. So, but yeah, I think it's one of those where, yeah, I think for me, it doesn't feel like it just because, as you said, I've been on the Matthew Kachuk is underrated for a long time train, but I do think like it is one of those things that when the dust settles, I think people are going to look at that for him and be like, okay, this guy, all he does is win. Because for the last 4 years now, regardless of what happens with Florida, if they miss the playoffs, whatever, he won this year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're spot on with that.
Yeah. So big moment for him. Anything else before we go? We could probably wrap this up. Hour
I know
40.
it's been long enough.
We can go.
I not
Take a
expected to do
nap
this long.
or something.
Yeah, seriously. I do plan on taking a nap today. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
At some point, but I don't know. This was fun. I like
It was.
look, tournament as a whole. I guess just like takeaways tournament as a whole. Because look, honestly, before this game, I was kind of underwhelmed,
Mhm.
just because like I think you talked about at the start of the podcast, thinking that USA had a chance because like there has to be an upset. There's got to be an upset somewhere in the elimination games, and until today there hadn't been. And honestly, I think if Canada had won, or certainly if they'd cruised to a victory, kind of boring tournament. If you don't ever get like, look, you have those close games, you have a lot of drama, but by the time it got to the Canada Finland game, I felt like I had seen the same game happen 4 times in a row,
Yeah.
where underdog trails, underdog comes back to tie it, underdog comes back to win it, including the gold medal game for the women. I just felt like I had seen that too
Favorite,
much.
you mean? Yeah.
Sorry, favorite. I meant sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Favorite trails. Thank you. Favorite trails. Favorite comes back to win. It just felt inevitable to
Yeah.
the point where it kind of was a little boring for me,
Hmm.
just because I felt like I'd seen the same game. And so this being a little unexpected, that helped. And this was just a great hockey game, and maybe it was worth it. Because look, I think it would have been super fun if like Czechia beat Canada in the quarterfinals, and then you've got the chaos the rest of the tournament and everything the whole way. I was waiting for the payoff because it had to be worth it not
Yeah.
having any upsets in order to get the USA Canada game. And I think the way it ended, it was worth it.
I'm totally with you. It was worth it. I started getting won over through the last couple of rounds once we got out of the group stage because the games were all close, and it had been so long since we'd seen best on best, and how much the Olympics means, and how far so many countries have come with their programs, that it was nice to see that look, Canada, US can't steamroll everybody, right? Like as much as we can say Canada was too front loaded, they didn't have the depth scoring, stuff like that, right? The USA roster and the usage was kind of questionable at times, whatever. No, I think the rest of the world is just catching up to them. And I think it would be a disservice to all of those countries if we didn't acknowledge it. And I think that, that was really exciting for me, that those games were legitimately close because those teams really stepped up. They knew that it was a single elimination game and they stepped up. Czechia stepped up against Canada. Sweden stepped up against the US. Finland stepped up against Canada, right? Like that was a huge thing, and being able to watch that and watch the effort put on by those teams, the way that they were playing mistake free, the way they were playing their team game to try to make those games, 1 goal games going into overtime, put themselves into that spot where they could potentially win and be the major upset of the tournament. And it didn't happen for them, but it was really nice to see that at the senior stage at the Olympics, because it's the thing that I love about World Juniors is that stuff happens, at least once a year. And you're always waiting to see which group does that because they're 20 and the hardworking 20-year-old is going to, beat out the more talented but mistake prone 20-year-old, right? Like that's just the way it works, the teenagers, right? But for that to be happening now at this stage at the Olympics, that was really, really cool for me to see. And I really appreciated that. And so I started kind of feeling it a little bit there because I went into this tournament pretty anti-Olympics. I hate the IOC. I
Oh, I
was
know.
like, I was like, okay,
I
we're
mean, I
just
do
gonna see
too.
like a Canada-US final. We all know what's gonna happen, right? Like, why should I be that invested throughout everything? And certainly through the group stage, I was like, yeah, this is why I don't really pay attention early on. But the elimination rounds really kind of won me over, and a lot of that has to do with the North American countries and just how far they've come since the last time we saw NHL players in the Olympics and everything. I just really credit to them and how all of their national programs have handled things for years. We've been seeing it at the World Junior stage. We've been seeing it on the World Championship stage in the case of countries like Switzerland, right, winning back-to-back goal silvers. But to be able to actually see it in the Olympics with full best on best rosters, that they could still hang with the big dog, that they can hang with the big dogs. That was really awesome for me.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've always loved about hockey. It's not just a North American game, not just an American game.
Yep.
It's a lot of different places around the world are play it and are very good at it. And I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah. So we'll see if the NHL players head up to the French Alps next time. I'm sure it's just gonna drop a stadium on top of the mountain, right? It's the natural
Yeah,
place.
no, that's how you have to do it.
I think it would matter.
Not like in
We'll
the cartoons where it's like on the tip of the peak of the mountain, it's just
yes.
like swaying back and
Yep.
forth.
Yep. Will elevation play a role, RJ? Next Olympics. Will Team Canada have the advantage with Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, and Taves?
See, this is where McKinnon gets his revenge. It's the altitude. That's what he needs.
Yep. All right, that's gonna do it for this episode of the Red Glare Podcast. Everybody, thanks so much for listening, and we will see you all next time.